Good morning. We are here at 11 o'clock and we are just going to give a couple of minutes to make sure that we give everyone a chance to jump on our live feed and interview. And I'm not going to tell you anything about it until we make sure that we have everybody on. So, stay with us. How you doing, John?
I'm doing just fine. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Did you walk over?
No, I drove because I was afraid it was going to rain.
It is raining.
I've got this project going now. I don't know if you know about this. My own little personal project
Yeah.
is that I'm going to walk around every street in downtown Kingston over the summer.
Okay.
So I've got a map at home and I put on yellow where I've been.
Okay.
But I've already been up here and between here and where I live, so I need to go further.
North.
But yeah, but the rain is not helping
No.
the project.
Well, every day. Every day the rain.
Well, there's been a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to do that over the summer. I saw this movie called Where Your Feet Can Take You or something like that.
Oh, really?
It was about a guy who walked all around every borough in New York City.
Yeah.
Took him 4 years. It was a really good movie. It was really
that
interesting,
idea.
and he talks up, and so I thought, okay, this was inspiration for me. I would do this, and I've been doing it, and I'll stop and talk to people along the way. So,
Yeah.
oh, how long have you lived here? Whatever. It's really fun. Yeah. It's my
And
summer
you would
project.
You would learn a lot about your own local community,
Absolutely,
right? That you
things
wouldn't know.
that I walk past many times and never really stop
Yeah.
and talk. Anyway, it's been good.
And anyone could do that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you could just do it in your neighborhood. Or you could you drive your car somewhere and park in a neighborhood and just walk around and see
Yeah.
lots of gardens to look at, and people doing things. It's been fun. So I'm going to do that over the summers.
And then you're going to write a book about it?
No, I'm already blogging about it, actually.
Oh, are
I put
you?
a blog article up every week on my
cool.
blog. That's
Yeah.
what something interesting I've seen with a couple of photographs.
Okay, so we're going to get started. I'm Kathy Cleary, and I'm the founder of Bridging Post, and thank you very much for being with us this morning. I'm going to be talking to John Geddes, Dr. John Geddes, sitting here with me. He is a local physician in Kingston and has been doing international work for many years. He and I have worked together as trustees on CanAssist Africa, and we've also worked together on a number of projects. I do work in Tanzania and in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and John has been doing work in Uganda and Kenya. He'll tell us a little bit more about that. And that's what we'll be talking about. We'll be talking about the projects that we've been working on, how John came to be interested in those projects, what led him to his work in Africa. If you have questions, you could please put them in the comment section, and we will address those toward the end of the video. Also, if you could hit the share button and share the live video with your friends, we would really appreciate that. Bridging Post is an online platform that allows people to share information and resources with each other, and it is funded through donations from people, and we're hoping that you might become a member and go to our patreon.com/bridgingpost and help support the work that we're doing here. So, how are you this morning, John? Good. It's good to have you here. I remember the first time I heard about you, you were doing work in Bosnia.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the first international kind of work that you did?
Yes, it is.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm a family physician. I'd worked in different communities, and it would be 1998, I think it was, that my wife had been ill and passed away, and my kids were teenage, and one of my colleagues came to me and said, teach physicians in Bosnia. We're going to try and start a family medicine program there. And of course, this was very immediately after the war in Bosnia. So I thought that was kind of an exciting thing to do, and I ended up giving up my practice here to do that. My colleague had said this would be for 2 years, and then it would be all finished. Well, it took 12 years for us to get it all going. So I spent a lot of time working in post-war Bosnia. And it was a project that was funded by CEDA, which used to be the Canadian International Development Agency, and it's not called that anymore. And we were there there for about 12 years, and I really enjoyed it. I spent a lot of time in Bosnia and in the surrounding communities, and got to know a lot of people there. It was trying at times because it was post-war, and the people were traumatized, and the country was trashed, and there were still tanks on the street, and I could hear guns at night sometimes. So, but most of the time I felt very safe and looked after by the people that were there, and got to know a lot of friends I still keep in touch with regularly.
So you were training family physicians
Yeah.
there. What was your relationship like with them? How did they feel about you coming and doing that?
Well, they were
training
very
with them?
excited. I mean, Bosnia was demolished during the war. So, you know, when I see pictures of Syria now, it sort of reminds me of what Sarajevo looked like in 1997, 98.
Yeah.
And and there was a lot of international aid that was coming in. A lot of it was restructuring, like building things and transportation and buses and trams and, you know, setting up that. But we were basically doing programming, which was to help reestablish some degree of medical education, which had been shut down during the war. And we were working with people who were quite keen on becoming involved in the international family medicine community. And we had people we had English as part of the training that we did, because a lot of medical literature is in English.
Right.
And they formed, they're still very active, and it really changed their healthcare system to give them a lot more primary care, something that really wasn't part of their system before that. So I think it was really, for me, it was really wonderful to provide some mentoring, I guess, more than teaching.
Yeah.
For physicians there, who then became really a lot more satisfied with their own professional lives. And were able to, I kept thinking, okay, so I'm working with one physician, but if that one physician's seeing 35 people a day and helps 5 people of those, you know, in a better way, then there's a real trickle down. And I think that's part of the whole development thing. I'm sure you find the same thing.
Absolutely. I was just thinking, it's like dropping the little stone in the pond. You just don't know where the effect of what you're doing might.
I think it's important when people are working in development too, is you kind of think, well, what can I do? You know, what influence? And if you just look at the one thing that you're doing, you say, well, that was just one small thing. But if that small thing actually influences a lot of other people, you know, I guess it's the same as, I don't know, you'll agree, I know. People who say, well, I don't have a lot of money to give. But if you give like $50, a lot of people give $50. That $50 is really actually helpful.
A lot of money.
Yeah, it is. It adds up. So I think individuals shouldn't minimize the effect that they can have as an individual, no matter what they're doing. Anywhere. I mean, it probably applies to almost everything, right?
Absolutely.
Your day-to-day life.
Absolutely. So everyone who's watching, if you could please hit your share button and help us reach more people, that would be amazing. And don't forget to leave your comments and your questions in the comment section, and we will get to those soon. And if you have a chance, go to our patreon.com/bridgingpost, which helps to support the work we're doing here of sharing information and resources across the world. So John, can you tell me, so you were in Bosnia, was there a crossover between your work in Africa, or did that come later? How did you end up going to Africa?
Well, I guess what had happened is I'd given up my regular practice here to do my work in Bosnia, so that gave me a little more flexibility in terms of what I was doing. And I was still doing some practice here as a fill-in, a locum, different places. And I was keen on going to Africa, so I got the opportunity to travel with a group called the Canadian Field Studies in Africa program, which is a McGill-based group of students who go for a whole semester to Africa, and they camp and go out rural places, and they take a physician with them because kids get sick, and parents were happier sending their 20-year-old daughter to Africa with a Canadian physician as part of it. And so I did that for 10 weeks in 2004 or 5, I can't remember which one. And I started to do that regularly with that group. So I kind of, as my work in Bosnia sort of tailed down because we were finishing that off, my work, the stuff I was doing in Africa sort of came up. First of all with the McGill group, But then, I started to realize, I tell this story and often is how CanAssist started really, was that I was with a bunch of students in a small hospital, and some of the students, there was one young woman from Toronto, she's like, my mother would really like to help out with things in Africa and doesn't know how she could do this. And we went into a hospital and talked to the clinical officer, it was the doctor that was there, and we went into the delivery room. The delivery table was all rusted, and there was a long counter that had a sink and a tap and everything with it. We said, we have no water. We can't. I was starting to think, gosh, how could you actually provide care in a hospital or a clinic where you don't have any water? They didn't have clean water to drink. There were people bringing water, family members bringing water out of Lake Victoria you've seen this, right? And I was like, gosh, and he said, and the shame of it all is that there's a pipeline that runs about, I don't know, maybe 100 meters, 150 meters along the street where we could get access, but we don't have any money to get the access. And I said, well, how much was the access? And he said something like, 100,000 or 85,000 or something. I was thinking dollars. And I started realizing he was talking shillings, Kenyan shillings. And I was like, you mean for $1,000 you can't get water into your place? He said, yeah, that's basically what it is. We just don't have that money, and the money doesn't come through the ministry, and we just can't do it. And I just said to him, I'll get it. I'll find it. I came home, asked a bunch of friends, people gave me $50 or $100. This woman the girl who said, my mom's into it, she raised some money, and we ended up sort of $1,500 over about 2 weeks. I sent him part of the money. They were really excited. They put in the water. I said, now, the good news is I've got an extra $500, more than what we even asked for. Yeah. That's fine. They put in a water tank. My name's on the water tank, actually, still. I saw it last year when I was over there, which was kind of nice, but I didn't do it to get my name on the water tank. And the next time I went back, I went in, and they were just so excited. They took me in. They took me into this area, and they went over and they turned the water on. I said, look, we have water. And the doctor said to me, now I can wash my hands between patients. Wow. And I thought, oh my gosh, really?
Such
how
a
great was
small
that?
thing and so huge.
Yeah, so then I started to realize, I had people when I was going back saying, if I give you a bit of money, can you do something with it? And I realized that maybe if I organized something more formally, sort of like what you're doing with this bridging post thing,
yes,
that maybe eventually there would be an effect for that, right? So some neighbors of mine and myself, we looked at what it would take to set up a charity. We set up the CanAssist African Relief Trust, and that would be in 2005. We had to put our own money into the legal stuff to get it formulated as a trust and everything. And our first year we did something like $20,000 worth of work in a couple of different places. And but that's kind of how it was going to be. But we were getting money at $5 or $20, or selling bracelets for $4 or cards for $3 and getting our money. But I checked with CanAssist Treasurer this week, and since 2008, when CanAssist was formed, we've done $1.25 million worth of infrastructure work.
Wow.
All that money coming from Canadian sources.
That's amazing.
It is, it's really amazing. And as you're aware, $1.25 million Canadian dollars, if you send the money over there, is worth about 5 times that much, or if even more. You can build a classroom for $12,000.
Yeah.
Right? So
that's incredible.
Yeah, it is. It's really incredible. So it's really gratifying.
So if someone's out there listening to us today and they were interested in doing maybe that kind of infrastructure work and or starting a charity of their own, what lessons have you learned, or what advice might you have for them?
Well, I guess to me it's surprising where we've ended up, or where CanAssist has ended up. I think the thing is to try and be focused and try not to take on work that you can't accomplish. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we did when we set up is that we're going to focus on infrastructure, so we're not caught up. So if you decide you're going to pay tuition for kids in a school, not that this is a bad thing, but if you start with somebody in grade 5, you're with them until whatever, so you can only do it with a few kids, right? Because you've got to keep going. And with CanAssist, our premise is that we will provide focused, tangible infrastructure, sustainable infrastructure work. So we put in a well, or put in a water tank, or a toilet at a school, or build a classroom, then they manage it.
Yeah.
So we can be really focused, and we're also then not making ourselves responsible for ongoing funding.
Yeah.
So that if we leave, so if we go and say put in a toilet in a school where they don't have one, it's done. So it's not like we have to keep doing this over and over again. So I think that the place that the advice I would give is to make sure that you're not dragging yourself into a system where where you're obligated for, $50,000 every year when you don't know whether you can get it. With CanAssist Africa Relief Trust, if the money we don't get money from our donors, no one's out anything.
Right.
So we haven't got anything we need to maintain. So CanAssist can say, oh, we got a donation of $10,000, and we certainly know where we can spend it, and then we organize and spend the money. I think there are too many times where people will get involved with something that is ongoing, and then how do you turn it off?
Yeah. And what about, it occurs to me, and I know this about you, but maybe you could talk about this a little bit, the importance of working with the community as different from for the community.
Yeah, or at the community.
Or at the
So,
community, yeah, or even worse, yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the other strengths of I think I keep thinking these are strengths we have, but we really did think it out before we started, was that we didn't want to go in and say, yes, we build wells, and this is how we build the well, and this is what we do, and this is our only thing. We would go to the community and say, what do you need? And they'd say, well, the toilets at a school, I'll come back to toilets, but sanitation is really important.
Yeah.
The toilets at the school are awful, and you've seen those horrible, like dirty, awful, run-down toilets, and 300 kids trying to use these toilets.
Yeah.
And how can they teach sanitation, or washing your hands after you use the toilet or before you eat, or how to control GI problems?
Yeah.
If at the school where you go and teaching this, the toilets are awful, right?
Yeah.
So they say we need a toilet, and there's, and this is how we would build it. Then the other thing that we do is we say, you go out and you decide, you talk to your contractors about how much it is. So we're not coming in as North Americans with a lot of money, going to the contractor and saying, we'd like to build a toilet, what do you think it would cost? Because we would get twice the cost. Right?
Absolutely.
So the local people go and they deal with their own, the workers in the area. They come back with a price, they submit what they're doing to us, and if we think it's reasonable and we become familiar with how much things would cost, then, and we have the money in the bank, we say, okay, we can do that. We also have the other thing that I think has been good for us is we have a guy named Dan Otieno who I got to know in 2004, who works directly with us and with the community over there. So he knows what the costs are over there. He knows, he can follow the construction. There are times where things will get 3/4 done and then we run into a snag of some sort. He can actually determine whether that's a real snag or an artificial one. And so he helps us to be able to finish this off and get something back from the people. And so having a really trusted agent in the community that will work on your behalf is important too. And I know that you've done that as well in the communities where you work.
Yeah. What would you say in your work with CanAssist Africa Relief Trust in the various projects you've done? What would you say was your biggest challenge, maybe as an organization or personally, and what would you say was your greatest joy?
The greatest challenge, I think, when you're working in that sort of community is to be sure, I don't know how to put this. There are lots of what they call briefcase NGOs who will look for money and they submit. We've had applications submitted that have been totally false. We've had people say they're going to do something, and when we go back to look, it's not happening.
Yeah.
And I would guess, like, out of that $1.2 million, I think probably CanAssist has lost, I don't know, $30,000 in money that's been badly spent or spent with people that we trusted that we couldn't trust.
Right.
And and that's always really, that was always worrisome to me, because I knew I was dealing with other people's money, and I felt so responsible for that. And I think it's helped a lot having Dan there to sort of do that. And there are a couple of communities where we don't work anymore because we know we just can't quite trust what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, it's reasonable for people who live in poverty, who have access to a bit of money, to say, well, I could pocket a little bit of this. So, and I'm sure any business, if you ran a store downtown in Kingston, you probably have money or things stolen from you. Yeah. So there is a loss that happens with any business. And ours has been really minimal, but that would be the biggest challenge, or the biggest sort of disappointment would be to find this happen occasionally.
Okay, yeah.
The biggest joy, of course, is working with the people. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a lot of friends. I feel really comfortable in these communities, and I go and they make me part of their community, and I've got people over there who feel like family. So,
Yeah.
And you know that.
I do.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone, if you could please hit your share button and help us to reach more people. And maybe I could just ask the people who are here with me for a time check. Oh, yeah. We're at about 11:20. Thank you. So you were talking about family, having family and friends over there, and I certainly, I agree with you for sure. I have people now that both in Tanzania and in the Democratic Republic of Congo that I can't even say they're friends anymore because they are my family. I mean, I love them, I worry about them, and I've lost family over there. A young man I was working with for a number of years, a couple of years ago, young, like had just graduated with his MBA, was in a bad car accident and died. And I was surprised at the time because I went into a grieving process like I had lost a family member, and I realized that in that moment that is how I felt about him. And so I think when we're doing this kind of work, and you're engaging with the community, not just taking money and, being part of a celebration and then leaving, but where you're actually part of a community and going back.
Do you find, it's interesting, I could probably live there happily.
Yeah.
And, right?
Oh,
Like you
yes.
should go there and if I didn't have family here and things
Yeah.
like other connections here, I could go there and quite happily live in those communities. I think the other thing is that people think, oh, you go to Africa and you could have all these poor people and people with AIDS and all this kind of stuff. It's not like that at all, is it? Like,
No.
basically people are happy and generous and kind and accepting and, have appreciative of what you're doing.
Yes.
It's like, it's not a downer to go to Africa. In fact, it's quite the opposite.
Absolutely.
And I think I have people say, oh, I don't know, it might be sort of sad.
Really
It's not
hard.
sad in any way, it's really good. And I don't know about you, but I have more trouble when I come home adjusting to being back in Canada initially.
Absolutely.
You go into Costco and it's like, oh, this is just so
Uh,
gross. Basically, I can't go into
It's
Costco
too
anymore.
much.
It's like, we have all this glut of stuff.
Yeah.
And I find that the most,
I
that
agree.
was surprising to me, that I
Yeah.
would find I would have a lot more trouble if I was in Africa for 6 weeks to come home and think, I don't like, this society is not, I'd rather be in the other society
Yeah.
almost.
Well, absolutely.
Strange,
After
isn't it?
after the first time I went, or maybe the second time, my transition there is very quick. I'm there and
Yeah.
I'm happy
Like this.
and I'm good and
Yeah.
I know what's
Out on the
I'm
street,
good.
and you might be the only white person
That's
in life
right.
that you see for a week, and you just feel really
Just-
comfortable.
yeah.
Everybody's really
Yeah.
happy to see you. Lots of hugs, lots
Yeah.
of kids that just want to hold your hand.
That's right. Get their picture taken.
Yeah. I don't know.
And then you come home and I remember trying to go grocery shopping, and like I had to leave the grocery store because I was just thinking, like, the little children that I saw, they're maybe eating once a day.
Yeah.
And
you're loading this
and
big
we're just
thing
have
full of-
so much
Yeah,
food
and
here.
throwing away,
And throwing it away.
fruit that has a little bruise on it.
Yeah,
and stuff.
yeah,
It's just like
exactly. That's a hard
I don't.
part,
Yeah.
that part.
I don't. Yeah. I think people are aware of that, but I think when you've lived in that society for a bit and then you come back, it's just startling, isn't it?
I just got to note that we have people watching from Africa. That's
Wow.
so exciting.
Yeah, it is.
Hi.
Yes. Yeah.
We wish we were there with you right now, or
Exactly,
you were here with
yeah,
us. That's
yeah.
that's awesome. It's Daniel. I bet you
It's
your
Dan.
Daniel.
It's
Hi,
my
Dan.
Dan. No, Dan. No, Dan. I went to Dan's wedding last year.
Yes.
So I went back over. Dan got married in April, and so what a great. So he's part of my family.
He absolutely is part
Yeah.
of your family.
Yeah.
And
So
a lovely
it's
young man.
yeah.
Who I've talked to on the phone but never met
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah. Wow.
Someday.
He's part of my family.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was talking to him this week, and he was saying, "Oh, maybe I could come back and visit." I was like, "Yeah, that's great." So
That
maybe you'll get a chance to visit him there.
That would be
Here.
nice. Yeah. Well, is there anything else you would like to tell our people?
No,
about?
except I guess part of it is that for 10 years I was the director of operations for CanAssist, and I was one of the original trustees. And then I thought after a while okay, so I've got to give other people a chance to do this, and I was kind of getting a little tired, not of the work in general, but I thought, okay, I put my ideas in, it's time for other people to do it. So I basically withdrawn as an official position with CanAssist.
Yeah.
But there's a group of trustees now, and Nancy Grew, who is a teacher in Kingston, has taken over a lot of the work that I've been doing, and works with Dan and works with other people.
Elizabeth and
Ray and yes,
Sue and Mike.
yeah, that's right. So we've got trustees that are carrying on the work, and I'm still involved in the periphery trying to encourage people to do things. But there are a lot of projects. I mean, it takes, and we have a lot. I guess CanAssist also has a lot of now. I was talking about having doing things for $5. We've had teachers organizations that have given us large amounts of money. A couple of other trusts, the Frank Family Foundation in Toronto, the Sassamat Foundation in Vancouver, Elementary Teachers Federation, the Ontario English Catholic Teachers Association, the Retired Teachers of Ontario. A lot of the work that we do is with schools, so I think the teacher connection's been really good. But we also rely entirely, you've been talking about your Patreon thing. CanAssist relies entirely on donations to do, and there's no end of how much work there is that could be done there. And I guess one other thing is that our CanAssist's Canadian overhead expenses are about 5%.
Right.
So, and it's stuff like you can't
Which
really
is
control, like
excellent.
banking and internet and all this kind of stuff. So everything's volunteer.
Yeah.
So I don't think you find a charity where you can say, okay, 95% of your money is actually going to Africa, as being spent in Africa. So even if we're buying stuff there to build something, the community is being helped by that, or people are getting jobs to work, carpenters building desks and stuff.
Yeah.
So I really am quite satisfied that our vision back in 2008, I think was a good one.
Great.
And it continues to be successful.
Okay, so we're going to do questions now.
Okay. We're looking
Again,
up
if you
because-
have a moment after the live feed, if you could go to patreon.com/bridgingpost, you could become a member and help support the work that we're doing here, which is sharing information and resources across the world. Oh, here's our questions. Okay, so John, how do you connect with the right people locally to work with?
Well, that's a bit of a challenge at the beginning. I guess part of it is that I was there. So I was going back annually with the McGill group.
Right.
So I would work with them for a period of time, and then I would be off on my own. So I got to know the communities, and I guess I got to know the people that were there. So initially, a lot of our work was with people that I'd already made a sort of personal connection with, and I kind of knew. And you probably found that too when you went with Kasha or whatever. You'd find people you're like, "This is a reliable person."
Yeah.
And so I think it's so important to have a reliable connection in the community.
That you have a relationship with that person.
And where I said we were getting into trouble was where we decided, oh well, maybe we shouldn't restrict it to these people. Like it's too inbred if we just do this. So let's open it up, and we opened it up then, and then some of the relationships that we would get that looked really good on paper turned out not to be so good. So I think having the personal contact, and once again, I really do rely on Dan a lot, because he knows the community and he can sort of follow and see what's going on. The other thing is that we would always release money in smaller amounts.
Right.
So we never said we're going to build a 4-classroom school that's going to cost $80,000. We would say we'll build one classroom, and if that goes well, we'll add on another classroom, and we'll add on another classroom, or we'll build you a toilet, or we'll put in something. So a lot of the schools that we've been associated have been added piecemeal.
Yeah.
And if it turns out that one little element goes wrong, then we're not caught up with a huge big.
Right.
So that's another bit of advice, was to release the money a bit at a time, get some feedback, what's happening, and then and gradually do things with somebody, rather than decide you're going to do some huge project that you're then caught with.
Yeah. So really, for both of us, being on the ground was kind of a critical piece, because we built the relationships with the right person. If you're doing it from afar, it would be very difficult, because you have no touchstone, right?
No, that's right. No.
Yeah.
It would be helpful to have some reliable person there that you knew that you had the touchstone, even somebody that you knew, or find somebody.
What keeps you, John, inspired to keep doing the work that you do?
Well, I guess personally it's really satisfying. I think we have an obligation to do it. We're so lucky.
Yeah.
I have a really comfortable, lucky life, and I've seen how other people aren't so lucky.
Yeah.
And I feel responsible. I feel like we have to share, right? There's I think there's a book called The Life You Can Save, and the message I got for it is, okay, so you work hard and you make money and you do stuff. Take your trips, buy your Apple Watch, do what you want to do. But if you've got enough money to do that, then you have enough money as well to help other people who don't have any of those things. So don't say, oh, I really should feel guilty and I shouldn't really pamper myself. You work hard, so go ahead, enjoy yourself, do that. But at the same time, think, okay, I'll do that, but I'll also then take a portion. I guess it's a bit like tithing. I mean, a lot of religious organizations are talking about that, right? And it's sort of like
a percentage.
Take part of your good fortune and share it with people who don't have it.
Well, I think we have a I mean, I agree with you. I think as people who are lucky, just by the luck of where you're born and who you're living with and what you have access to, we have a responsibility to be sharing with people who aren't as lucky.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I guess something like your bridging post, or even CanAssist can do, is that a lot of people sort of would say, well, I feel that way too, but I don't know how do I do that? And a lot of people don't have the opportunity or the finances or whatever to travel and meet people in Africa, but maybe they really would like to help. So finding an organization that's doing that you can count on and that is reliable, I think it's really important. And I say, even it's like $50, really, it's helpful.
Yeah. How has your work in Africa, this is a good question, how has your work in Africa changed you as a person?
Oh gosh.
That's right to the heart.
Changed me as a person. I don't know, maybe it's sort of brought out part of me that was there before.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm a physician, right? Physicians are helping people, and I mean, part of the reason people go into something like that is because they want to be able to help people.
Yep.
So this has just been a different way of me being able to share my particular skills or talents with other people.
Yep.
And of course, having the opportunity to live in a totally different culture and relate to people. I've learned so much from my African friends, culturally and personally, and see how they live, and it's just it's a learning experience.
And it changes who you are as a person. It just what you learn, and I think in a way that maybe is difficult to articulate. Yeah. Joyce is wishing us all the best from Canada. Thank you, Joyce. Thank you. Okay, here's another question. What's the best way to find out about local efforts in my community to find the right people?
Well, that's a really good question.
Yeah.
I don't know, I guess it depends where your community, I know in the Kingston community, we're in Kingston, Ontario, Canada.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know if this is probably where this
Yeah.
goes. There probably are 10 different organizations, right? That are
Oh,
here, like, or
at
groups of
least.
people that are doing something.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know how people actually find it. I suppose you could Google charities or Google whatever it is. And I think, once again, I asked you a little bit about your bridging post before we started, but I think that's part of your purpose is to be able to, so do you have like a page or something as part of your website that has got charities that you're like, I don't want to use the word promoting, but that you vetted and that are reasonable?
So we have all of our articles on the website are often in connection to an individual with an organization. And then we have on one of our pages sort of highlighted organizations, which changes from time to time, that you can go to donate to.
Mm-hmm.
I think if a person is looking to do something in their local community, for me anyway, I think the thing is that it's like, where do you see yourself? Are you interested in homelessness? Is it food? Are you interested in animals? Like, pick your kind of where your heart lies, and then Google animals and charities, or helping animals in Kingston or wherever you are in the world, and you would find a couple of, and then just phone people.
Yeah.
Like, that's, I think, just talk to people.
Well, and there are probably things locally that you could do as well. I mean, it's not like everything has to be in Africa.
No,
I'm sure there's
exactly.
lots of good charities that are local that do something, and you find something that you're interested in. And I guess the other thing is, if people wanted to talk with me or with you, they could get in touch with us through whatever.
Bridgingpost.com.
Yeah, we're happy to share. When we were starting CanAssist, I talked with Deb Lefebvre, who was doing my
Yes.
and they had started a couple of years before us, and it was really interesting because I think we were like sort of 2 years behind them in terms of everything. But it was really helpful to sit with her and say, okay, what are you going to do? What are you going to do with that? So anybody who wanted to start doing some charitable work or whatever, I'd be happy to share my experience, or if there were specific questions, to be able to help with that.
Absolutely. I
And
mean,
I'm
that's
sure
always the best way. You talk to people, and they know somebody who knows. I mean, this just happened to me yesterday. A woman who knows another woman who's lived in the Democratic Republic of Congo. I'm going to meet with her, and I don't know where that will lead or who she knows, but I know that when I go there, I want to be more connected to people there and have an opportunity to figure out how I can do my work better.
I do think it helps to talk to someone who's a bit established with it, because there is a definite learning curve, and it does take a little while for you to kind of be able to figure it out. And as I said, I think it really helps to have a connection in that community, no matter where it is, that you can rely on.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, what was the hardest part of getting CanAssist started?
Well, finding some money. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
basically, it's hard. Like, I find even, people who are wanting to be supportive of what you do, people have trouble going and asking their friends for money. It's not easy, and you can't be out all the time. And to start, at the beginning and realize, okay, if I want to do $30,000 worth of work, I have to find $30,000, and I'm not going to put it all out of my own pocket. I paid for my travel over there out of my own pocket. I mean, it was really a good personal experience, but CanAssist didn't pay for me to be in Africa. I was lucky that part of the time I was going with the group, so I would go do my work with the McGill group, and then I'd stay for 3 weeks, and I'd do my own person. I paid for all that myself.
Yeah.
But people can't afford to do that.
Yeah.
So finding the donors is the most difficult thing, I think.
Yeah.
And I guess, as I said, CanAssist has come around from having to, like, I made cards and we sold them for $3. It cost us $1.50, so we make $1.50 for a card. Or bracelets that we brought back were Maasai bracelets. We paid the people over there for the bracelets and then sold them, and would make $2 or something bracelets. It takes a long time to make $1.25 million at $2 a time. So, but what happens is, as you gain credibility, so you have to think, okay, there is a path, and the path is start easy, prove yourself, learn you know, on a lower level,
Mhm.
and then as your work ramps up,
Yeah,
you'll get credibility. And now we have a lot of credibility with these teachers organizations, for example, or other, the Sassamat Foundation, I could do a little plug for CanAssist. The Sassamat Foundation is a group in a charitable organization in Vancouver that found us about 5 or 6 years ago. And they've been funding us annually. And every year around Canada Day, because we think, okay, Canadians are really lucky, let's share, we have a Canada Day challenge.
yeah,
And Sassamat has said, we will match donations between, I think this year it's between June 27th and July 11th,
Coming up.
over Canada Day.
yeah,
They'll match, like absolute match, up to a total of $35,000.
amazing.
Now, you know, once again, that's as much as we did in our first year, so we, you know, and now I think CanAssist's annual output is somewhere around between $150,000 and $200,000. So there's an opportunity that you can actually have your money matched.
Yeah,
CanAssist has a website. I'm sure there's something on the website about that matching
Bridging
opportunity.
Post,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, that's right.
Go
And
through there.
but for example, so now instead of selling a $2 bracelet, we've got organizations that we've proven
Right.
that we've got a proven record with these people.
Yeah.
The Frank Family Foundation's another one, and all these teachers organizations.
Yeah.
They know what we do,
yeah,
and they're funding us. But this matching thing is just fantastic.
that is amazing.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to thank John very much for being here with us today. I want to thank all of you for watching. Again, Bridging Post is an online platform that provides people an opportunity to share their stories around the world, what you're doing, how you're giving in your own community or anywhere else in the world. And then through that, we're hoping that we'll connect with each other and we can build on what each other's doing. Keep an eye out on our social media for announcements we'll be making, and we'll see you on the next live Facebook video. Thanks very much for being with us.